City Councilor. Today is Monday, July 30th. We are here with our friends from the Boston Public Schools and Property and Construction Management.
The Public Facilities Department.
I'm sorry, it went back to Public Facilities.
That's our old name.
Yeah, right. Everything's going retro now. I'd like to remind folks this is a public hearing, both being broadcast live and recorded on RCN Channel 8. RCN 82, Comcast 8, Verizon 1964, and streamed at boston.gov/city-council-TV. I'd like to ask folks in the chamber to silence their electronic devices. At the conclusion of the presentation and questions from myself and my colleagues, we will take public testimony. There is a sign-in sheet to my left by the door. We ask that you state your name, affiliation, residence, and please mark the box if you wish to testify. Today's hearing is regarding the appropriation for various school repair projects. Dockets 1076, message and order approving the appropriation of $5,429,304 for the purpose of paying for the costs associated with window replacement project at the John Marshall Elementary School, Up Academy. This includes the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto and for which the City of Boston may be eligible for a grant from the Mass School Building Authority. Said amount to be expended under the direction of the Public Facilities Department on behalf of the Boston Public Schools, and docket 1077, message and order approving appropriations of $600,000 for the purpose of paying for the cost of a feasibility study and schematic design work associated with projects at the following schools: Rafael Hernandez School, boiler replacement; Patrick Linden School, boiler replacement; Donald McKay K-8 School, boiler replacement; James International School at Copley, roof replacement; and the John D. O'Brien School of Mathematics and Science, window replacement. This includes the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, and for which the City of Boston may be eligible for a grant from the Mass School Building Authority, said amount to be expended under the direction of the Public Facilities Department on behalf of the Boston Public Schools. I'd like to also welcome Brian McLaughlin from Public Facilities, as well as Tommy Welsh from BPS. Thanks.
Thank you.
So, take it away.
Thank you, Councilor. So before you today, as you mentioned, are two items, both dealing with the collaboration between the City of Boston, Boston Public Schools, and the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Mm-hmm. The Massachusetts School Building Authority is the state authority that oversees the funding of public school capital projects in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The MSBA is a reimbursement agency, is funded through 1 penny of the 6.25% sales tax. Mm-hmm. The first step in the MSBA process is to submit a statement of interest. This is what the MSBA refers to as their application. Mm-hmm. The SOI allows districts to inform the MSBA about certain deficiencies within a building that may prohibit the school from delivering its educational program as desired. The SOI requires votes of the school committee and the city council to be submitted to the MSBA. There's two programs within the MSBA's capital program. It's the Accelerated Repair Program. In the core program, Accelerated Repair Program deals with just roof, windows, and boilers in otherwise structurally sound buildings. And the core program is for major repairs, renovations, or new school construction. The repair projects that we're here before you today, there's one, the Marshall School, which we're looking to, for the City Council to appropriate the total funds for this project. It's a $5,429,304 window project, of which we'll get reimbursed upwards of $3.3 million from the MSBA. In June June 2018, the MSBA approved this project. That set in play 90 days for the city to appropriate the funds for to cover the total project budget. That's why we're here before you today for that one school. Mm-hmm. It will require 2 votes of the City Council because it is an appropriation. And once, if the city council votes in favor of this, we will then move into design development, and the project will likely go into construction in the summer of 2019. The other item before you is the 7 schools that were most recently submitted to the MSBA this past February. So in February of 2017, the city of Boston, working with the Boston Public Schools Facilities Department, determined that these 7 schools would fit within the MSBA program. And at that time in February, the Rafael Hernandez School's boiler was submitted, the Patrick Linden boiler, the McKay boiler, the James Otis windows, the Josiah Quincy Elementary School boiler, and the Snowden International roof, and the John D. O'Brien windows. Those 7 schools were submitted to the MSBA, working in collaboration with BPS. The MSBA went out and visited each one of these schools to see if they would be in compliance with their program. And in June 27th, they voted favorably for these 7 schools to begin what they call their feasibility study. So we now need to appropriate money to pay for this feasibility study through schematic design. So looking ahead, if the city council votes favorably for this $600,000 appropriation, we'd ideally get the 2 votes from the city council by the end of August. The MSBA would then assign an OPM and an architect to kind of expedite the process for these projects. And design would occur from September to probably early winter of 2019. We'd likely get these projects out to bid in the winter of 2019 or spring of 2019, which would pave the way for either summer 2019 construction and summer 2020 construction. It's all dependent upon the lead time associated with some of the materials we use in these projects, whether or not they'd be able to go into construction in 2019 or 2020.
Right, and we have a significant track record of boilers, windows, and roofs, which we've been able to do in the summertime.
Yeah, so to date, since 2014, the city of Boston has completed 12 projects totaling $37.6 million, and we've been reimbursed $21.3 million. We have 1 project in construction right now that costs just over $2 million. We're being reimbursed $1.2 on that project, on that the Russell Roof project over on Columbia Road. And we have 5 projects that have been approved by the MSBA totaling $12.8 million, which we're going to be receiving about a little over $8 million in reimbursement for that. So in all total, projects completed and projects that have been approved by the MSBA, total project budget of those projects have been $52.5 million, but the city has received or will be receiving $30.5 million in reimbursement.
Is that still 60, that's almost
It's about
60%.
60%. Right. That being said, that doesn't include the 7 projects which we're looking to get the $600,000 to start design of.
Great. Do you have any questions,
I have
Council?
a quick question. I hope it hasn't been asked. I apologize for
No,
coming in late.
They just started.
Why do we have to have a feasibility study for this work that we've done typically in a lot of our schools?
So this is part of the MSBA process. It's that feasibility study schematic design is actually the design of the projects.
Okay.
It's not the
We've
back.
done this before?
Yes.
This is always, okay.
It's a requirement of the
Process,
MSBA process.
I didn't realize that. Okay, very
Yep.
good.
So we've done it on these other 18 that have been moved
Thank you.
forward.
I didn't realize that. And then, do we ever look at, especially with the roofs, solar panels or some other green roof technologies for our schools?
Sure. As part of the schematic design, we would work with the district to figure out if there is going to be any sort of photovoltaics that could potentially be on those roofs. MSBA doesn't reimburse on photovoltaics, but that doesn't mean that we can't incorporate putting the infrastructure in place at a later date to support that type of system.
And then my last question, thank you for that, is how does this play a role in Build BPS?
So a lot of the information on the site visits from the 120 schools that took place last summer, we incorporated that information in figuring out which schools actually would fit within the MSBA ARP program. There's certain requirements to this program, which is that the building systems have to be over 20 years old, the buildings have to be structurally sound, except for the fact they might need a roof, window, or boiler replacement. They can't be overcrowded. They have to be used for actual educational purposes. It can't be an administrative building. So working with the Bill BPS information that was drawn from the site visits and the facilities team at BPS who live in these buildings day in, day out, they thought that these 7 schools would be a good fit for the MSBA ARP program. And based upon MSBA site visits, they concur as all of them were invited in to participate in the program. That being said, we're already working with BPS facilities to identify potential schools that would be a good fit for the next round of submissions, which usually happens after the first of the year.
But this is in addition to whatever the work will be with Build BPS, or separate from Build BPS,
Oh, no.
using the information, but this isn't really a part of what we've talked about as the plans for Build BPS.
Yeah, no, this falls squarely into one of the 4 big categories of work of Build BPS. The first being new builds and massive expansions of schools. We got the reconfigurations and renovations as a second. We have system-wide initiatives. Those are things like making sure playgrounds are at all schools. The kitchen updates is a great example. The furniture, $13 million in furniture rollout is another system-wide initiative. This one falls under capital repairs, so it specifically the accelerated repair program focuses on roofs, boilers, and windows, and those are the 3 projects that are reimbursable, and as Councilor Siomo said, about 60% right now is what we're looking at. So working on these projects in partnership, it gives us a bigger bang for the buck. Something that we're also looking at as far as the Build BPS team and how we're emphasizing equity and everything that we're doing. We're really trying to make sure there's geographic diversity of who gets the project, so it's not just concentrated in one area, but so every single neighborhood gets at least something, knowing that we can't possibly build 50 brand new schools across the city at any time within the next 10 years or so, but at least ensuring that we have schools with the beautiful buildings, beautiful windows that you see when you pass down the Curley Street on Center. I think that's a really good example where everyone's like, wow, the school is completely different because of the new windows, but ensuring that schools across the city have projects like this.
Right, thank you.
I was just
Thank you, Chair.
curious, thank you. The window project, is that one of the bigger window projects, 5 million for the Marshall?
There's a lot of windows at that building, and it's the window system in the building is going to cost a lot of money to replace because some of the heating units are tied into the window system. Wow! So we're going to have to address that when we take those windows out.
Right. That is more atypical of a window replacement project, is it?
East Boston was big.
East Boston was big. Well, the McKay was rather large. Dorchester Academy.
I would assume bigger buildings,
cash,
more
cash,
windows,
cash.
but this seems to be a lot for a window.
Windows are
project.
usually the high, in terms of roof windows and boilers, the window projects are usually the higher dollar value.
Great. Well, great. I will report, oh, I'm sorry. Hi. We've been joined by Councilor Edwards. Do you have a question?
Just one quick
Yeah,
one to
sure.
follow up, and I apologize if you've already asked it. It's about the green or the infrastructure that you're building into the schools with the windows and the boilers. Do you expect to save money in terms of energy efficiency? I don't know if you've asked that already.
Similar.
Sorry.
In the same topic
In the same
area.
vein. All right.
Sure.
Well,
So one of the reasons the MSBA has created this program is to hopefully replace these 3 building systems, which would in turn create an operational savings. Last year was the first year that we really got into construction on window projects, so hopefully we'll be gathering the information over the next coming years to see how much we've really saved through these projects.
and in terms of replacement of these windows, how long do you expect them to last, and the boilers?
At least probably a 30-year life
Okay.
cycle for the windows and boilers,
Okay.
and
Wonderful.
20 to 30 for the roofs.
Thank you. That's it.
Great, thank you. Great. Thank you very much. We'll be reporting this out for its first vote on Wednesday.
Great.
This
Thank you.
hearing's adjourned. Greg, sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, and I'm sorry,
That's all right. I was hiding in the corner. I'm Greg Gaylor. I'm Executive Director of the Boston Preservation Alliance. And I'm here today because I saw the hearing as an opportunity about these MSBA school projects is a way to bring council aware of a concern that the Alliance has had. You may not realize that there's a connection between MSBA and some review required by the Massachusetts Historical Commission because it is state funding. And we don't have any particular concerns about the projects being proposed today. But we do have concerns about process. Back in 2015, the city obtained MSBA funding to demolish the historic and construct a new Dearborn School in Roxbury. It was a historic building. It raised a lot of concerns in the neighborhood and the community. And as I noted, because of the state funding, there is a required review by the Mass Historical Commission. And candidly, back in 2015, the city didn't handle it all that well for the Dearborn. And it led to significant delays for that project. In order to allow that project to move forward, there was a memorandum of agreement signed with Mass Historical Commission, also signed by the Boston Landmarks Commission, the Boston Public Schools, the MSBA, and the Boston Preservation Alliance was very involved in that process. In order to sign that MOA and allow things to move forward, there was a provision that remains unfulfilled 3 years later by the city. And that condition is that the city develop a preservation plan and survey for all the Boston school properties constructed before 1955 to identify which ones have historic significance in various listings, such as listing on the National Register of Historic Places and other things that would require a Mass Historical Commission review, and then to outline a process for those buildings. Now, the goal was to identify those schools where concerns for historic issues would be an issue when SBA funding might be applied for, to advance a smooth process for review. In other words, to avoid what happened at the Dearborn. We thought that was a positive outcome, and it was something that allowed us to continue to support the Dearborn moving forward, which it has. But sadly, despite repeated reminders from the Preservation Alliance to the Public Facilities Department, the survey hasn't been completed yet, and the city continues rightfully to apply for MSBA funding that should come to the city. But I'm very concerned that at one of these points, Mass Historical Commission is going to raise its hand and say, what happened to the report you agreed to do 3 years ago? So I just wanted to make council aware that this is hanging out there, and so far it hasn't caused an issue, but it will down the road, and it also, I think, comes to the credibility of the city in signing memorandum of agreement like this. So the goal isn't to stop these projects. We certainly recognize that schools need upgrading. There are many that are historic and contribute to the historic nature of their neighborhoods, and we want to make sure that doesn't cause a roadblock down the road. So I just urge the council to help us encourage the correct city departments to complete this required survey. Thank you.
Thank you. I would beg to differ a little on Mass Historical not holding up projects for a long time. And some issues that I personally have with Mass Historical. Who else are we looking for the city to pick up the tab to do this, or is your organization willing to step up?
No, we don't have the funding, and the city agreed to do this study. And regardless of your opinion of Mass Historical Commission, and they vary, they are a required review authority. So, they will be reviewing these MSBA projects. That has to happen. Right. So our goal was to try to get ahead of this rather than giving an opportunity for that process to delay. So by ignoring it, that's not solving the problem. By getting out ahead of it,
that pertains
helps.
Today, Greg, honestly.
I'm sorry?
Today, you said, you even admitted in your opening that it doesn't pertain to anything today. So when a project gets proposed, Mass Historical will be aware of it because it has to go through the state, as you said. So I'm just failing to see the issue right now, today, on this.
Well, I don't know where these specific proposals are regarding the Mass Historical Commission review at this stage, but I promise you sometime down the road, it may not be with these, one of these is going to get proposed and Mass Historical is going to slow things down unnecessarily. And the city will be surprised. I mean,
unnecessarily either, but go ahead.
Well, the goal is to have more information, Counselor. I mean, I think putting our head in the sand and pretending these things aren't issues isn't really the solution. To identify in advance when the issues occur. And the city agreed to this 3 years ago. Right. It's not like I'm making this up now. So I just wanted to make you aware that we consider it a concern, and we're trying to do our due diligence and making sure it gets done before it causes a problem.
And, you know, I consider myself to be a preservationist. I think deeply about our history here and our architecture and how we want to preserve that. But the Mass Historical Commission has their agency that will be able to look at these issues. So I fail to see the issue that you're raising. You know, you even said the Mass Historical Commission goes through by their desk, right? And they will see that this is a project about boilers, windows, et cetera. And I know that they've stopped projects. I know that they've done reviews. So I'm just failing to see the issue.
Well, I think this wasn't meant to be a long debate, but
Right.
I guess the issue is the city signed a memorandum of agreement agreeing to do a certain thing related to projects like this 3 years ago and never completed it. That's sort of the crux of the
Okay.
issue. Thank
All
you.
right, good enough. Thank you. Good. Hearing is adjourned.